Hello. In today's episode of Books Upon Discrimination, we will be talking about the reality of being gay in India. And we will be reviewing a book by Siddharth Dubey, which is called No One Else. It is an autobiography as well as it's a social political book. So, in the first half of the book, the writer talks about his own experiences as he grew up gay in 60s, 70s, 80s India and how things changed over the years. I will be talking exclusively about the first part of the book because I think that is what we need to empathize with and that is what we need to understand to actually grasp the ground reality. So let's talk about the first chapter, which is called Shame. This is where the writer realizes that he is a girly boy when children in his class start teasing him. At that exact moment, standing there at my classroom desk and hearing the other boys calling me sissy, I began to see myself as a freak. I was overcome with self-loathing as I realized the many occasions on which, unthinkingly, I had shown my parents what a girly boy I was. Now, much worse, I realized that the larger world saw me as only that. So this is where he realizes that just being a girly boy, like wearing his mom's jewelry or dresses, just being himself is not okay. This is the first time that it hits him. Now we also talk about the time period when he went to an only boys school and the ragging and the sexual assault that were very rampant over there. So what happened to guys who were girly in that school? Forever tainted as the male equivalent of easy women, they were made the target of sexual abuse. The stigma that these poor boys wore at times endured even after they had left school. All the while, the senior boys who abused them were admired for being macho rather than being criticized for being abusers. Night after night, residential dorm by residential dorm, young boys accused of being actively homosexual were dragged out and beaten up by several senior students. So, uh, the teasing in school turns to abuse in the boarding school. Now he goes abroad, and this is where he reads the history of homosexuality as a part of his course, and he realizes that no, these things are not that abnormal. I was startled to find that these societies had treated same sex desires simply as a matter of taste or preference, often varying over the course of an individual's life. The gender of one's beloved was essentially irrelevant, with personal attributes of character and beauty explaining erotic attraction towards a particular individual. So he gains understanding as he reads more and more because it is a beautiful thing to actually understand who you are through the eyes of others. And probably for the first time, the writer felt that he wasn't abnormal or he wasn't an outcast from society and that people like him had indeed existed. But when he comes back to India, he faces very basic realities. Like, for example, he and his friend go dancing with each other on a dance floor. This was in the 70s, 80s, and obviously the dance place was filled with straight couples. What happens when they start dancing with each other? A few minutes later, the music went dead once more. The lights came on, and the loudspeaker announced again that stag dancing was forbidden. Near the entrance, I saw that the manager had been joined by another officious looking man, probably a more senior colleague, who was also staring at us. Quite a few of the couples, giving us baleful looks, went and sat down by the bar. So, this is how they are discriminated against because everybody around them is uncomfortable, so they should alter their behavior accordingly. Now, let's talk about how people found sex when there were no online apps in those days. Even more astonishing than the massive scale of nighttime cruising was finding, once I grew attuned to it, that men were picking each other up almost everywhere and at every hour. During any routine interaction in the day, in shops, while walking down a street, or waiting at the bus stop, the flirtation had its own secret lingo. It worked through gestures known only to those already initiated into the sexual network but invisible to all others. A deep stare and an inviting smile, a handshake held for far too long, a hand dropped suggestively to the crotch, or otherwise inexplicable offer of और कुछ सेवा कर सकता हूँ, can I serve you in any other way? So in a society where you were free to choose whoever you can flirt with. You could just go to a bar and assume that the person of the opposite gender whom you like would be interested in you. They may or they may not be, but you could at least initiate the conversation. Here, even that was a barrier. You had to carefully measure your words. In the later part of the book, he talks about how 377 was a law that led to a lot of harassment and even sexual harassment by the police. So all these things kind of barricaded you inside. You had to be very careful whom you talk to. You had to be very careful about how you behaved. You could not just do whatever you wanted to do, and that is a separate kind of trauma, because to hide who you are, to not be yourself in front of your parents and your best friends because you don't know how they will react, that itself can be very, very demoralizing for anyone. And that is what a lot of people not only grew up with, they are growing up with it right now also. Even in today's India, where the law has been changed and there are online dating apps, there are open gay groups, there is a huge support system present, there is still that hesitation, there is still that secrecy, there is still that measuring, whether you can come out or not in front of somebody. And I think we need to work towards erasing that also. We need to let people be who they are. It's not that big a crime to love somebody who wants to love you, right? Maybe we should think about that. Thank you.